hardest part of any new book project is simply just getting started. But I find that often it's really difficult for folks to move forward without some certainty that the idea itself is viable. And that's why today I want to talk through the 5 traits of good ideas. Stay tuned. Most memoirs don't stall because of lack of time. Most memoirs stall because of lack of clarity. And that's why I put together the Memoir Method Checklist. The idea here is to give you every single step in the process, not because that makes it easy, of course not, but because no project is ever completed until you know what the steps in the process actually are. You can download it free at pageandpodium.com/checklist. When I was thinking about what I wanted to talk to y'all about on this week's episode, one of the things that kept coming to mind was a frequent question that I hear on consults all the time. Essentially, folks want me to tell them whether the idea for the memoir is good enough to warrant the heavy lift of energy, time, skill development, and all the other things that go into the project itself. And this is totally fair. While I would always encourage you to dive headfirst into any creative idea that feels good, that seems fun, that's pulling you toward it, I also totally understand the impulse to want some kind of professional reassurance before you dig into this thing that's likely going to take you 6 months, 9 months, multiple years in many, many cases. And that's why today I wanted to give you a bit of a framework, some of the ways that I think about whether an idea is a great idea, something that could maybe work depending on how you treat it, or probably not something that's going to be successful in the market. Now, I do want to offer one caveat here, and that is that while I am going to be talking about marketability of ideas, how ideas can be measured ahead of time to some degree in terms of whether they will be of interest to readers in the general literary community, I also do want to note that whether or not your memoir fits these 5 traits, that does not mean that you should or shouldn't write it. Oftentimes, we are getting as much out of the process of writing our memoir as the product. And very, very often, during that process of writing that memoir, we will discover not only ways that we can angle and frame and tweak that idea to make it stronger, but we also learn a lot about what it is we like doing, which sometimes is just the runway, just the launching pad we need to come up with the actual good idea. And the reason I really wanted to start this video by emphasizing that point is I don't want anybody out there listening to this to say, well, my memoir does not fit all 5 of those points. My memoir only fits 2 of those points. So I guess writing it would be a waste of time. No. I would never, ever want you to go away with that idea because it's simply not true. Every piece of writing builds our skills. Every piece of writing builds our capacity for internal analysis and insight. Every single project we do with creativity and heart does push us forward in this longer journey of our lives. We're just talking today about whether your idea is something that you can expect to be highly pitchable or whether it's going to be something that might be a little bit quieter book, that might be a little bit more for a smaller community, maybe more of a niche, or even just for yourself. So with that said, let's dive right into these 5 traits of a strong memoir idea. Okay, so the first is something that I have talked about a lot. Now, if you go back through either this YouTube channel, the podcast feed, or our blog, wherever you're getting this content, you will see multiple videos, blog posts, audio recordings on your topic. Now, I often find that this is kind of a surprising piece for a lot of folks because when you think of a memoir, isn't the topic just you? And while, yes, of course, the topic of your memoir is you, the important thing when you're thinking about the idea, your topic needs to be something that is just one thing that is cohesive and bounded. Now, this is as broad as human experience is, so there's no really right or wrong to how you're defining your singular idea. It could be anything from adopting your first child to raising a family of 7. It could be anything from working your first job to a long trajectory of career advancements. Anything in the range of items that have happened in your life, of course, is fair game. But when we're looking for your singular topic, the important thing is that we can define it as one thing. Now, if you don't have a topic that fits into this one cohesive slot, that will often sound a little bit more like your life story, what we might more rightly think of as your autobiography. If you are moving from your birth to now, that is going to have a lot more than one thing, right? Yes, it's one thing in that it is your life, but probably you've got childhood experiences. You probably have school age experiences as well as things that happen in your family as a child. You've got those teenage years, those really chaotic young adult years, if you're anything like me. And then, of course, you've got career. You've got your family of your own, whatever that might look like. You've got your home life. You've got your hobbies. All of these things are, of course, part of our one life. But the important thing for your memoir idea is that you can simply and easily explain the one thing your book is about. Now, let me give you a little bit more here in terms of why you need this if you want your book idea to be strong. And the reason really comes down to why people pick up a book. Now, we have come a long way since the days of the little corner bookstores, and that hurts my heart. I know that breaks a lot of y'all's heart out there. But when we really think about how people buy books in 2026, we usually are not seeing the same types of browsing a bookstore that we might have seen 50 or 100 years ago. Rather, unfortunately, most people will either go to Amazon or something like bookshop.org or another online retailer where they're going to buy your book. Now, when we think about it this way, we've got to really think about how they will find the book, because while all of these sites do allow you to browse by topic, very often when readers are looking for a book, they are going to actually search in the search bar for the topic. Things like adoption, things like nursing, things like getting through college. This is the type of topic that you are aiming for because this is the way that people will discover your book. Now, of course, when you get way down the line from where we are right now, you're going to want to build on a lot of marketing and promotion and things so that you're getting the book itself in front of people. But it is still going to be useful for you to be able to tell them, my book is about one thing, and that's your topic. So number one, when you are thinking about whether your memoir idea is going to be strong and solid, the thing you are looking for first is that your topic is cohesive. One singular topic, not a list of items that have happened to you, but rather one thing. Okay, the second component of a strong memoir idea is your angle. Now, we encourage our Memoir Method group members in our group coaching for women who are writing their memoir to think about this in terms of message, but I want to talk about it a little bit differently today because we are talking idea stage. We are in the dreaming phase with this video. So I want to expand things a little bit. Now, when you are thinking about that topic, you are going to bring your own personal bias, your personal slant, your angle, the perspective that you have on that topic. And that is not a bad thing. While certainly we live in this world where we're talking about objectivity and truth and facts, when we are talking about a memoir, no one wants to read your objective true-false account. What folks are looking for is your particular angle, your particular take. So at the highest level of, say, a hierarchy of these types of angles, we might think pro-con. I am pro-adoption. I am anti-workplace discrimination. Yes, of course, that's true. But I want to push you a little bit here, because when we're thinking of the framework and the angle of our idea, we're really looking for some kind of a unique spin or take. And often all this is going to require of you is bringing your topic into conversation with some other component of how you want to share. Now, this right underneath our pro-con, we might put kind of a larger cultural perspective. So this might be things like political perspectives, religious perspectives, even kind of family dynamic type perspectives. But we can even go further down into this and dig down to try to find really interesting combinations of idea and angle. So one of the offerings that we have at Page and Podium Press is our monthly book club. One of the things that I love about book club is it gives us all a chance to read the same popular memoir together and think about how these different components work together to make it effective. Now, recently we read the very, very popular book, Crying in H Mart. And I think that this is such a great example of ways that we can make our idea even more interesting by pairing that topic with a really interesting angle. Now, if you have not read this book, it is so good. I really highly recommend go out and buy it wherever you like to buy books. But the thing that I want to bring to purpose here is that what this book is about losing your mother. This is about the author's journey of going through this relationship with her mother. Her mother's diagnosed with cancer. She does eventually die. And it leaves the author to really process what has been going on, how this has affected her. But what is so beautiful, truly, about this book is the way that the author weaves in food. Now, she is Korean American, so there is a particular element here of her mother's Korean heritage coming into play as she is kind of grieving even before her mother dies, and then certainly after. How does food play a role in that process? But what's so beautiful is that while we have all heard many, many stories of grieving the loss of a parent or a loved one, pairing that with food makes it a really interesting angle. And one of the things that Emily pointed out in leading book club, whatever month that was that we read that book, was that this is such a unique way to speak to your particular reader. Emily in particular grew up around food. Her mother was a caterer, and she herself is an amazing cook, let me tell you. So as she picked up this book, it really spoke to her, not only in the topic, but also in the angle. And that's the point I want to make here. Your topic can take you a long way, but if you can pair that with a really interesting angle, an interesting perspective or way of seeing things, something that is more specific than pro and con or religious, political, cultural groups, you will have a memoir that is really speaking to either two readers, but more powerfully, a single reader that finds themselves at the intersection of those two interests. Well, that's powerful. And I often find that when you really dial into the angle that is right for your book, it also makes it so much more fun for you, the author, to write it. So the second thing I want you to have in your memoir idea is some kind of a unique and interesting angle. All right, the third trait is something that might surprise you a bit because this is not actually about your idea as much as it is about your relationship to that idea. Here I want you to think about when you are kind of imagining your idea, when you're thinking about how it might play out on the page. Are you curious? We do not talk about this enough in our society, and probably I don't talk about it enough on this podcast. But when you have curiosity about the thing you're working on, you will be so much more open to the truly inspired ideas that people really want to read. We are in this world of AI where we all want instant answers that are objective, true, and certain. And unfortunately, that does not play well with the very human form of memoir. When we come into this deep personal self-exploration, there's simply no way to go through this well if you are not curious. Now, how curious do you need to be? Because do not hear me say that I want you to launch into an idea that feels totally out of bounds for you, that you have no way to even wrap your head around. Rather, what I want you to think about is, do you have some certainty? Do you have some grounded sense that this is the right step? This idea is the right topic. It's the right angle. But I only want that certainty to go to maybe 70 or 80%. The thing with memoir that is really going to benefit both the idea and the work itself is if you can be open to the discoveries that all of us make along the course of really any long-term project, but particularly a book about a slice of your life. So, when you think about this idea, truly, is this an idea that feels very pre-planned in your head, that you have certainty about how you want to say every single thing that you have to say in that book? If so, that is, unfortunately and bluntly, a project that you're not likely to finish. Typically, I see those projects really fizzle out because they don't sustain the author. Instead, what we want to aim for is a project where you have a pretty clear sense of the effect. You know the kinds of emotional reactions you want your reader to have. You know the things you want to talk about, certainly, and you have some idea of how you want to talk about them. But ideally, your idea will also leave you room for exploration. So, the third point I want you to consider, do you have curiosity about this idea? Is it something that you are excited to dig in and get your hands dirty and learn more about yourself, about the topic, about your angle, and about what it means to write about these things? Okay, the fourth thing I want you to think about as you are evaluating your memoir idea, does this idea connect different aspects of your personality, expertise, knowledge, or experience? Now, here I want to be very clear in that we are not veering away from that single topic point that I made earlier in this video. But rather what I want you to think about is that you as a whole multi-dimensional person have a lot of things that you could bring to a reader. Anything from actual training, education, certifications, to your experience, but everything in between, from your hobbies to your familial relationships to your friendships to even just the trajectory of how you got to where you are. Now, I want to really talk about this in a much more specific way for just a moment because I do find that there's a very particular type of aspiring memoir that tends to come to this channel, and I want to speak to you directly here. Oftentimes, the women that we work with best, both in our group program, the Memoir Method, but also in our one-on-one coaching, and also certainly on our publishing list as Page and Podium Press, tend to have both a really interesting topic, a really interesting experience they want to write about, and also a complementary source of expertise. Now, this does often tend to be university training, graduate degrees, that kind of thing. It certainly doesn't have to. But one thing that is really popular, particularly around nonfiction readers who tend to want to learn as they're reading, is to be able to get a story while they learn something interesting. And here is where I want you to lean into any parts of your personality that can enhance your story by teaching your reader something that they can use, something that can come forward with them to help them understand their lives better. Because of course, while we're writing the memoir, we need it to be about us, but we've got to make sure we're connecting with the reader too. So when you think about your idea, I really want you to think about, are you leveraging the other aspects of your knowledge experience into this idea to make it as unique and interesting and informative and engaging as it can be? Here we're just adding another layer of complexity, just again to make sure that we have a very clear sense of how we're connecting with the reader, what we're going to teach them, and how our story is unique from the other stories with the same or similar topic that are already on the market. Okay, and then the final piece I want you to consider, can you imagine an audience for this idea? Now, one of the things that is so important, of course, in marketing any product at all, which our books are products, is that we can imagine who will benefit from them. Now, as you think about this idea, one thing that I really want you to ponder is how is the idea similar to and different from other memoirs that are on the market? Now, sometimes people are surprised a bit when I say similar to and different from, because there is a real urge to say, if my memoir isn't the first to do X and Y and Z thing, then it's not worth publishing. There's already one out there. Somebody beat me to the punch. They scooped me. I get this instinct. And in fact, we were talking in the group program recently about this and how this actually can be something that really sneaks up and feels very, very heavy, both at the idea stage and later when your book is nearing completion. But the thing that I really want you to remember here is that readers don't want your book to be so different that they don't know what it is. Every reader is looking for a book that is like other books that they have enjoyed, but different enough to be worth continuing to read. And I bet you see that in your own reading patterns. In fact, if you are looking for your next read, a pro tip I saw pretty recently was to just go to Google, type the name of a book that you like, and put read alike. Oftentimes there will be some blogger or list that has compiled other books that are similar to the one that you liked, but again, different enough to hold your interest. Well, that is what we're looking for here. Does your idea have a place in an audience's heart? Is there an audience that is typing into their search bar books like X and Y and Z that would be so happy to see your book pop up in their Google browser? Well, that is what we want. We are looking for a book that has a built-in audience, an audience that already knows they like this type of book and who you can connect with at an even deeper level through some of these complexity layering things we've been doing throughout the earlier points in this video. So that fifth point, that you have an audience, you can imagine your audience, you can think of speaking to them, you can think of reaching them through maybe social media or a newsletter or essays. You know who they are. It should not be everyone, and of course it should not just be one person. We're looking for a niche that is identifiable. You can imagine who that person is, describe them. Maybe you've got friends, family, people in your social circle who are your readers. That is what we are looking for. Okay, well, I hope that as we have gone through this video, it has not only been check boxes, yes or no, positive, negative, true, false, but rather, I hope that you can use this list to really refine and develop that idea. Really, there is no bad idea for a book. The problem is when we land on an idea and then barrel right into the writing without doing any kind of development or planning first. So that is the reason that our group program, the Memoir Method, where we work with women writing their first memoirs, starts with a very clear step-by-step process in which you will not only refine your topic and your angle, your message, you will also end up with a full plan for how to move forward in your book. This is the place where that curiosity really shines, because once you've got the constraints that hold you safe in the writing process, well, now the fun begins. Now you can get in there and really get your hands dirty and really mess around with the things that you want to say and how you want to say them. And friends, that is the joy of writing your memoir. Okay, if I can help you think through your idea, if you'd just like to get a gut check, you can book a call with me at pageandpodium.com/contact. I can't wait to hear about your idea. And otherwise, in the meantime, happy writing. Most memoirs don't fail for lack of time. They fail for lack of clarity, because their author is trying to move forward in a process that is unfamiliar and unclear with no one to support their efforts. And that's why I put together something very practical, the Memoir Method Checklist. This is designed to give you every single step in the process so you not only know what you need to work on now, you know what's coming next, and after that, until you have that beautiful published book in your hands. You can download it now at pageandpodium.com/checklist.